What's up, folks? Justin Garcia, aka Master Chim here. I am the owner, founder, head instructor of Jungle Gym Martial Arts here in the Bronx, and I wanted to talk today about participation trophies. Participation trophies. So I was tagged today by my buddy Sonny Parlin down in Florida. He's also a black belt under Rob Kahn from Gracie, Tampa, and all around good dude. And Sonny tagged me in a post citing an article. The title of the article was "In Defense of Participation Awards in BJJ." And like Sonny, I am very much opposed to participation medals, and I wanted to, rather than just go on a rant and tirade as I tend to often do, because I just really don't have the patience to articulate a lot of these things. I'm going to take some time to do just that. Now, I have not read all the comments on Sonny's particular thread, but I have read the article that was linked, right? So, In Defense of Participation Awards at BJJ, it's on jujitsutimes.com. Now, it's written by a guy named Chris Zahar. I do not know Chris, never met him. I clicked before I read the article, I clicked on who he was. And it says, Chris Zahar covers mixed martial arts events for the Jiu-Jitsu Times. He is a second-degree black belt in karate and blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He lives with his wife and son in Virginia. Now, I do not know Chris Zahar. Probably a nice guy, probably a good dude, and this is not a personal attack on him. That's not the intent, at least. But in his article, he cites two main reasons why he thinks that there's nothing wrong with participation trophies in BJJ, and he doesn't think that they discourage winning and undermine the merit-based culture of sports. Now, I will say on face value, I agree with that statement or that observation. Again, to repeat, there's nothing wrong with participation trophies, or, I would add inherently wrong with participation trophies in BJJ competitions. And I don't believe they discourage winning and undermine the merit-based culture of sports. Now, I would add that he gives two reasons for supporting these positions, and I'm going to first address those reasons, and then I'll add a little bit more of my own observations. So his first thing is, he says competitors still want to win, right? And he starts off, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says there's no evidence that giving all competitors, even the losers, a material benefit will discourage them from wanting to win. And then he cites, Floyd Mayweather making millions of dollars, he would still make millions of dollars even if he lost, but he's still encouraged to win. He's still trying to win, and his record, indicates that or reflects that. So, it's a false comparison. So, pros get paid to compete. Amateurs pay to compete. They don't get paid; they pay. So it's an entirely different paradigm that he's trying to connect in his analogy. So I think it discredits that. It's really something that is not, comparable when it comes to, why somebody wants to win and whether or not they get some material benefit because of it. His second thing is participation awards are earned. He says these guys train, they show up, and his first line is, no BJJ competitor simply shows up to a competition. Continuing, every single person competing at a jiu-jitsu event has spent months, years, or even decades honing their skills for their chosen competition. Okay, so there's something called a universal qualifier, and quantifier rather, universal quantifier. And when we use the word every, words mean things. So every single person competing at a jiu-jitsu event has spent months, years, or even decades, he writes. Well, no. Anybody can go and compete. You literally could show up at a jiu-jitsu tournament, pay money, and compete. And many people have. He says months. Many people have spent months. I competed after training for, I think, 2 weeks. I've had students who've competed within 2 weeks of starting. So the fact that they're earned in some sort of admirable, glorious way, it's a narrative that just doesn't hold up to my experience. Now, mind you, for those of you that don't know, I am a jiu-jitsu black belt. I've been, training almost 20 years. I've had a school over 15 years. I trained amateur fighters, professional fighters. I once had 200 students show up to a single tournament. I have some experience with this whole competitive, world. So now, why? What's my take on participation trophies in general? Well, the thing is, anytime we reward something, it's operant conditioning. It's incentivizing and positively reinforcing a behavior that we want to see more of. We want to see people compete, so we give them a participation trophy. This is a good idea for the promoter because he will get people to actually participate in his tournament because of the allure of that participation medal. Now, mind you, the only thing that they've done is paid the money and, got on the mat. To say that, it is earned because it is some sort of accomplishment, well, now it comes down to the perspective of what it is that we see as being worthy of an accomplishment. And this is my main beef with participation medals. Now, if we're people as a jiu-jitsu industry, if we want to incentivize competing, and we do that by assigning a physical reward to that, what we're doing is we're saying that our culture, the culture in our society, the culture in our individual schools, is so weak, underdeveloped, malaligned, misaligned with competition, that there needs to be a third-party award waiting in the wings in order to incentivize that competition. Hey, student, you should compete. Well, coach, I don't really want to compete. Even if you lose, they give you a medal. Oh, okay, I think I'll go and compete again. I'll go and compete then. We see how this is something that, if we put it as generally as that, it's not something that we should be getting behind if we're actually supporting the growth of the strength of our culture. If you look at, something as I would say related, but certainly applied differently conceptually, dog training. There's a difference between showing the dog treat before he does what you want him to do and rewarding him with it after. When we show it to them before, it's called bribery. And what winds up happening is, and I'm not a dog training expert, I just have some experience in researching this. What winds up happening is over time, the dog will, basically, you have to show him something before he's willing to do something. And that's not incentivizing the behavior itself, it's actually just incentivizing the control that he has over you and what he can do in order to get a reward. Well, this is animal behavior 101. If we're going to incentivize people, then what we should be doing is actually incentivizing the benefits that already exist by participating in a tournament. The camaraderie, the tribal, element, the respect and honor of increasing the value of one's reputation amongst their peers, the personal benefit of overcoming any obstacles, that are standing in one's way from competing. Being scared or, just having doubts or, maybe not having the money and saving and getting the money to finally compete. Competitions could be expensive. There are a lot of things that we could acknowledge and therefore incentivize that have nothing to do with a physical reward. I would say a participation trophy actually reduces all of those other benefits in the eyes of the competitor. Because it becomes something that's propped up. If a promoter is going to offer participation awards for doing the thing, then he is going to sell the value of these participation trophies. Sure, he might link them and associate them to all the things that I mentioned before, but all of those things are solidified. They are made real once the person receives the medal. Don't have the medal, now did I really do all of those things? Remember, we're talking about incentivizing the increase in strength of a culture. Now, there is a point where individuals need that very elementary, low-level positive reinforcement to incentivize behavior that we want. Those people we usually call children. That's why we put stars on people's papers, right? The kids' papers. That's why in a kids' class, you look at the belts of the kids in my kids' classes, and it's got every color, multiple stripes, a million different ways to get positive reinforcement. There's a certain point, however, that when we get past a certain level, we should be weeding people off of that. We should be having them understand the value of the behavior that we were once incentivizing so trivially with these dog treats, for lack of a better term, that when we actually get them to the point where they're competing, that's something that they sort of squared away already. Anybody that's competing for a participation trophy is, and I don't want to go in too hard here, but, cowardly, unambitious, materialistic, borderline disrespectful. But if the people who are competing are not, or are competing for the participation trophy, then how would we ever expect them to develop the mindset necessary to actually win something? In a society today that's wrought with entitlement and just, low level of resilience, anti-fragility, is a term that a lot of people are using these days. The ability to become stronger through adversity, right? Pressure to power is my model. Well, we have to make a concession that every single time we make something easier for somebody, we remove the benefit of them overcoming it on their own. We want to talk about the value of putting it on the line in a competition. We want to talk about the benefits and use models of individuals of how, when, overcoming, your individual, sources of adversity and the obstacles that you find in your path, how those things produce an individual that we want our students to sort of emulate to be, work on, sort of traveling that same path. But when we start rewarding them for doing things that, let's be honest here, is really not a big deal. Going to compete is not a big deal. Now you could say, well, that's easy for you to say. Yes, that's easy for me to say. Because in my school, the culture is strong enough that I make sure they don't look at tournaments as a big deal. And what I found is they're more likely to go and compete as a result of it. They're more likely to not sort of have these sort of grandiose ideas of what winning a local, regional, whatever tournament actually means in the grand scheme of the development of their potential. When we are looking out giving dog biscuits, who's looking to do it? The tournament promoters. Well, what happens after we run that formula for a long enough time? I don't know. We start having white belt world champions, blue belt world champions. I tell all of my students, and I believe it, the only tournament that matters is black belts. And, the most prestigious tournament that's available. If it's no gi, and I say black belts, it's really like a gi thing, so it would probably be the Worlds, admittedly. If it's no gi, it's Abu Dhabi. If it's MMA, it's the UFC. Like, these are the highest level, abilities, opportunities to compete. And you're the best when you win one of those at the highest level of competition in those. Absolute division in the Worlds, whoever wins that is the guy. He's the guy. Everything else is an individual working on their potential. But it's hard to get a lot of people to show up as a tournament promoter if you're selling, self-actualization. If you're selling, the type of journey that will pressure an individual to face his fears and overcome, it's much easier to say, hey, you guys are going to get this awesome trophy. You guys are going to get this T-shirt. You guys are going to get a picture on social media or something to that effect. I get it. I understand it. And I agree with it as a strategy, but at what level? Our young children, they need the treats. They need the stars on their papers, right? But after a while, are they doing it for that? Are they not doing it for the things that we want them to do it for? If you guys have ever heard of a hormone, oxytocin, it's the social reward hormone. And it's something that, it's been called the love hormone, and they've even discovered it in dogs, right? And people, dogs, and we get it from positively socially interacting with other people and ironically dogs. But that comes from people connecting, and there's an immense benefit to that. To use, and I promise this is my last dog analogy or example, they did a study, I think it was Science Magazine, or it was reported in Science Magazine, that a bunch of dogs were tested to see which they would respond to more favorably. Treats, their favorite treats, or their owner. And it was sort of like a maze, a 2-lane maze, and they had the choice to go to either the treat or the owner, and they all went to the owner. Why? Because social interaction is what allows us to survive in society. It's what allows us to develop our potential as an individual. And trinkets and treats will never do that. That's why tribe matters. That's why, earning the respect of the people in your tribe. Why, you have that currency of virtue we called honor. We're constantly looking to develop that. We're not ever looking to reduce that process to little participation treats. So, participation awards, do I think they should be given? Well, guy wants to give them out, give them out. Any one of my students, looks to take one, I'm going to mock them, because that's how social regulation goes. If you haven't heard my, social regulation scale, it's I mock you so I don't have to punish you. I punish you so I don't have to exile you. I exile you so I don't have to kill you. But I will kill you to save the tribe. Obviously, this isn't getting into any of those other points. But if you have a behavior that you don't want grown, you want to disincentivize, you mock it. But by the same token, you can't just remove bad habits and leave some sort of void. It's up to the leaders of an individual tribe to replace those bad habits with good ones. And what is it that I look to incentivize? I look to incentivize a person constantly looking to pressure himself or herself, developing who they are as an individual. When I see a promoter who has, profit, monetary, motivations, when I see them offering trinkets for participation in a thing, it's up to me as a leader to allow my guys to know why it is that they're doing that. When, I have students of mine that have taken, the whole, third place, and there's only 3 competitors, they've taken it. And I have other students that, 2 people in a division, they get the second place, and they're like, no thanks, I don't want it, because, I didn't win anything today. I participated, I didn't win anything. I leave that up to the individual. Because there's something to be said for, going out there and competing, and, 2 people showed up, and how do you know 2 people showed up? I remember once doing a judo tournament, and I was a white belt in judo, and I tried to compete in the brown black belt division. And my instructor, my judo instructor, I asked him, I said, I was already a brown belt in jiu-jitsu at the time. And I said, would you mind if I competed in the black belt division? And he said, why, are you a black belt? And it's like, oh, and he's a tough dude. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So then why would you compete in the... It's like, all right, I get it. But I felt like I was sandbagging. So what I did was I found all the guys in my division, and I was like, listen, man, my instructor is making me do this division. And it was like a white green belt division. I said, I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just letting you know. I'm not sandbagging. He's just making me do this division. And there were, I think, 12 people in the division originally. When the division actually happened, there were 4 of us, right? So a bunch of people were like, fuck that, I'm out of here. And I can't really blame them. It's kind of why I told them, go find somebody that's at your competitive level. So if somebody goes and competes, and you don't know if somebody was going to show up and didn't, like, you go, you compete. I don't have anything inherently against taking a second place medal if there's 2 people in division. I don't think it's necessary, I don't think I would like a person who is fully developed to not need that medal. If there were 10 people in the division, you came in second place, you won a couple of different scenario, but the sort of default third place because there's 3 people medal, you should get to the point where you don't need to take that home, right? So I'm rambling, and again, I thought I was being respectful. I was trying to of my side of this discussion. The guy Chris Zahar, he's a blue belt. He's a black belt in karate, but a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, it says. And I think that in jiu-jitsu, he needs to spend a little bit more time understanding the things that I've discussed. I don't hold it against him, but in his jiu-jitsu journey, he's pretty new. He's writing for Jiu-Jitsu Times, so he has some influence because I think this is a fairly popular website. But as I've been a black belt over 12 years. I've been training, almost 20. I've run a school for over 15 years. I'm not making this stuff up. These are things that I understand to be true and things that I've replicated over and over again. So take it for what you want. I say participation trophies, no. Incentivize, the guys in your school to not need to take them. It's not the end of the world they do. Sometimes, people are not much above a dog needing a dog treat to do the thing that he's supposed to be doing already. All right? Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.